Man, the heat is just shimmering off that pale grass and thorny scrub, and this honey badger is plowing right through it, nose to the ground. Up ahead, tucked under some more of those thorny bushes, a pack of African wild dogs is just chilling, all tangled up in a pile of legs and spotty coats. The badger, smart fella, sticks to the shade, sniffing the air, sneaking around an anthill, and checking out the tracks left by beetles and lizards. Then, his nose picks up something else. Dogs. A whole bunch of them, with full bellies, floppy ears, panting away, and just about ready for a nap. The badger slows his roll, drops down so his belly's almost scraping the sand, and uses the bushes for cover. He finds a little hidden path next to a termite mound and zips through it totally invisible from just 5 paces away. As he gets near the den, the whole smell of the place changes. It's milk, dander, old fur, freshly dug dirt, and his nose confirms what he was hoping for. Pups. There are puppies down there. A second later, he's backing out with a mouthful of a squirming, struggling puppy, his eyes looking dead serious, already retracing the escape route he planned on his way in. The little pup starts yelping, real high and panicked. That sound flips a switch. Ears perk up all over the shady spot, and the quiet hangout explodes into a storm of yips and pounding paws. The badger hits the gas, but the dogs spread out and start closing in on him. He gently drops the pup, making sure it's safe, and spins around to face the circle closing in, because there's no way you can outrun a whole team of marathon runners. Dust kicks up as the pack spreads out, then tightens its circle. Their barks are high and sharp, like they're calling out plays to each other. The badger just lowers his head, makes his fur stand on end, and digs in with claws that grip the earth like nobody's business. They're testing him, checking his speed, his stamina, looking for any little mistake. The badger isn't giving them an inch, just throwing out short, mean counter moves. He gets a quick bite in and lets go before they can swarm him. On the edge of the chaos, one dog manages to scratch his shoulder. A few drops of blood pop up on his fur.
Bred
the
to
badger
run
just
prey
shrugs
into
off
surrender.
the sting and plows forward, pushing through a gap and forcing the dogs to
Their
reset
strategy
their circle.
shifts from kill to attrition. Harry the legs, steal the breath, deny stillness.
This pack is relentless. They were born and bred to run their prey into the ground. So, they switch up their game plan from a quick takedown to just wearing him out. They nip at his legs, try to wind him, and never let him catch his breath. But the badger's defense is like he's made of rock. He's got this thick, rubbery skin, beefy neck muscles, and a skull shaped like a wedge. Their teeth just slide right off. Their bites can't get a good grip. And when they do, he just twists in a way that breaks their hold. Minutes feel like hours. The heat is just pressing down. The circle of dogs breathes in and out, attacking and backing off, while the badger turns every single second into another moment of survival.
The coats are
he digs
maps
his
of
way
identity.
backward into a clump of grass
Every
for some
blotch
cover,
and stripe
braces
unique like a
himself,
fingerprint.
and fights back again. But you can see fresh teeth marks on his side. He's still strong, but time's running out. Even a machine made of iron gets tired eventually. The wisdom here is as old as the hills. You stand your ground when you have to, and you run when you get the chance. The badger is reading the pack's rhythm. waiting for a couple of them to
Energy
charge
is
too
the coin
far.
of their world,
And then boom,
and they
he
spend
bolts
it
right through
precisely.
the opening they leave. His escape starts as a mad dash and quickly turns into a calculated plan. The honey badger runs low to the ground, following a little ditch. The wild dogs come flooding after
Success
him,
is their
not trying to
signature.
pile on, but to
Among the
steer
highest
him,
of any
snapping
large
at his
African
sides
predator.
to guide him away from their den and the pups. The pack doesn't need the win, they just need him gone. In the distance, the barking fades to satisfied little huffs and the patter of paws. They're happy just to have chased the home invader off their turf. Out here,
Dens shift as
survival
parasites
isn't about
build
pride.
and scent accumulates.
It's about practice.
The family
And
moving the
practice
nursery
just
every few
keeps
weeks.
going with every breath you take. African wild dogs make their living with teamwork and speed.
Each
a pack is a
move
real
is a
family,
lesson in
not just
logistics.
a mob, usually led by a
Risk
seasoned
is
mom and
managed
pop,
with distance and
while the
timing.
brothers tend to stick around,
Memory,
and the
not
sisters
muscle,
head off to start
closes
their own
most
families.
arguments.
It's a smart strategy that keeps the gene pool fresh without breaking up the family business. Their coats are basically their ID cards. Every splotch and stripe is unique, like a fingerprint. And those giant round ears? They're like personal air conditioners and satellite dishes, getting rid of heat while picking up the quietest little calls from miles away.
Heads
Pups
low
show up in
when scent
huge
is
litters.
thin.
10 is pretty
Heads
normal,
high
and
when
sometimes
air
there are
carries
even more.
news.
They're born in the dark of a borrowed den, where the first few weeks are all about staying warm and getting milk. Then their eyes open, they get steady on their feet, and their curiosity just explodes. One or two of the adults always stay behind to babysit when the hunting party leaves. It's a guard duty where they trade the glory of the hunt for the good of the family. Because raising kids out here is a group project. They're always talking to each other in a bunch of different ways. High-pitched twitters when they say hello, low growls for arguments, and a hooting call that travels for miles if a dog gets lost. And get this, they even decide when to get a move on by sneezing. A whole chorus of sneezes has to build up, like they're voting on it without saying a word. Energy is the currency in their world, and they spend it wisely, trotting at this super efficient pace that can cover 50 kilometers in a single day if they have to. Their success rate is
The
legendary,
intercept is clean,
among the
a
best of
closing
any
of
big
angles
predator in
rather than a
Africa.
contest of strength.
It's not because they're the strongest, but because they have insane endurance. They work like a relay team, and their coordination is flawless. Once the pups are done with milk, they learn by watching and by begging, and the food gets shared with everyone.
The struggle ends in
Hunters
hard
coming back
bites.
to the den will lower their heads
the dogs
serve up
retreat
some
apace
warm,
to reset
pre-chewed meat for
before
the
feeding.
youngsters, the nursing moms, and even the old-timers who can't hunt anymore, because the next generation always eats first. They have to move dens every so often as bugs start to build up and the place gets smelly. The family packs up the nursery every few weeks to stay one step ahead of flies, hyenas,
Within
and
minutes,
lions.
flanks
And
deflate
every
and necks
move
shine,
is a
and the
masterclass in
ribcage
planning.
loosens as breath
They
flows
manage
from sprint
risk with
to
good
recovery.
timing and by keeping their distance. Experience, not brute force, usually settles any arguments. In this society, your rank is your job title.
When the first
Not
appetite
some
is
prize
soothed,
you show
the
off.
social machinery of sharing begins in earnest.
And the job is pretty simple. Keep everyone alive. Now, the adults are getting up and stretching, sniffing the breeze as they leave the safety of the den. With the little ones tucked away in the cool earth and watched over by a patient auntie, the hunters spread out in a loose line and just flow over the landscape like the wind. Their heads are low when the trail is faint, and high when the air brings them some news.
The wild dogs return to the den, not as individuals, but as roles that shift with need. The pups greet them with a frenzy that resets fatigue into purpose.
Their feet are a blur as they trot along. Not too slow, not too fast, just perfectly efficient. They're reading the ground for any sign of recent action. A bit of scat, a fresh dropping, a green twig that was chewed just moments ago. Then, they all turn at once when a stronger scent drifts across their path. Impala. The line of dogs gets tighter, the pace picks up, and you can see the power loading into their hips and shoulders, ready to launch. They switch from cruising to full-on pursuit. The first thing they see is a flicker of tan fur through the bushes.
They move dens
a
when
white tail
scent piles up
flashes,
and parasites
horns like
bloom,
black commas
carrying
against the
the
sky,
very small
and
in
the dogs
gentle
surge
mouths.
forward. The
They do
impalas
not
just
own the
explode,
land.
leaping
They pass
high
through
in the
it.
air, changing direction on a dime, basically showing off how fit they are with every jump. The chase stretches out like a tight wire between two simple
The
facts.
memory of safe
The
paths
antelope is
is
faster.
an inheritance.
They
The
survive
dogs
by
will
giving,
never get tired.
not hoarding.
Little staccato barks rise and fall as the pack
They
communicates
guard by
and
being
adjusts.
present, not
One
merely
dog pushes
fierce.
from behind, another swings out wide to cut off a turn, and the herd just pours downhill. The impalas get away,
In their world,
but as
strength
they flee,
is measured in how
they
many you can
accidentally
feed
lead the hunters
and still
to an
run again
unexpected
at
prize.
dawn.
The
Go
takedown
together,
is poetry in
return
motion.
together, and
It's
make
more
the
about
road
closing
safer
off
for
all
the
the
feet that are
angles than a
smaller than
test of
yours.
raw power. One dog nips at the lechway's backside to turn it. Another one pushes at its shoulder to throw it off balance, and gravity does the rest. The antelope trips right where the solid ground turns to mush, and the pack is on it in an instant. The whole thing is over in a matter of seconds, and the dogs even back off for a moment to regroup before they start eating. They eat like their lives depend on it. Because out here, you never know who's watching. Heads go down, jaws get to work, and that meat is turned back into energy.
The pack is
Each dog
tireless,
picks a spot
bred
and
to
tears
run
off small,
prey into surrender.
easy-to-eat pieces. There's no macho posturing or lone wolf nonsense, just pure efficiency when it counts. In just a few minutes, the carcass is visibly smaller, and you can see the dog's breathing slow down from a full sprint to a recovery pant. A late, excited squeal means the kids have arrived, drawn in by the smell and the calls the hunters made once the coast was clear. Once they've taken the edge off their hunger, the real family meal service begins. A hunter steps away, gives a little cough, and brings up a warm, half-digested chunk of meat perfectly sized for little mouths. A whole cluster of pups scrambles into place to get their share. Before they head out, a couple of dogs double back along the chase route, kicking
Energy
dust
is the
over
coin
any
of their
wet
world,
spots on the ground
and they spend
to
it
smudge the story
precisely.
they left behind for any other predators who might be reading the signs. Even when they win, they're careful to cover their tracks. Family is what drives every decision they make. The wild dogs head back to the den not as a bunch of individuals, but as a team
Risk
where
is
everyone
managed
has a
with
role that
distance and
changes
timing.
depending on what's needed.
Memory,
Hunter,
not muscle,
bodyguard,
closes
teacher,
most
babysitter.
arguments.
And the pups greet them with a wild energy that seems to wash away all the tiredness and replace it with a sense of purpose. As the sun gets low, a babysitter will stand guard at the den entrance, ears up, head on a swivel, watching the heat haze for any sign of danger. This bond they have isn't just for show. It's a core part of their survival strategy. And yet, it really looks like devotion. because a strategy that's been perfected for generations starts to look a lot like culture. They clean each other's faces. They'll rest a leg over a sleeping brother or sister. They patiently let the clumsy pups climb all over their tired bodies. And right there, in that patience, is the secret to their amazing teamwork tomorrow. They move dens whenever the smell gets too strong or the bugs get too bad, carrying the tiniest pups in their gentle mouths and guiding the older ones with soft nudges and patient stops. They don't own this land, they're just passing through it. Their knowledge of safe routes and good hunting grounds is passed down through generations. They survive by sharing, not by hoarding. They protect each other just by being there, not by being the meanest animals on the block. In their world, strength isn't about how much you can take for yourself, but about how many you can feed and still have the energy to do it all again at sunrise. And the wisdom they live by is simple enough to be baked into their bones. Go out together, come home together, and always make the path a little safer for the ones whose paws are smaller than yours.